Alameen, and it is a source of guidance for the universe. Now the Quran says that the first house of worship was the Baytullah, was the Kaaba. And it is a blessed house, and it is a source of guidance. So much is the blessing of that house of Allah, that the Prophet ﷺ said that the one who goes for Hajj and he performs all the rituals of Hajj, when he returns from Hajj, he is so pure and he is so free of sins the way he was. رَجَعَكَ يَوْمٍ وَلَدَتْ أُمُّهُ. The way he was pure and the way he was away from sins on the day when he was born, such is the case of the person who does Hajj. So this house of Allah and the pilgrimage, the Hajj that we do, is a source of blessings. It is a source of atonement for the sins. It is a source of forgiveness for the sins. The Prophet ﷺ made dua, "O Allah, forgive all the sins of the Haji and the sins of the person that the Haji makes dua for, forgive all their sins as well." So not only this house of Allah is full of blessings, the one who does Hajj to that house of Allah, that person also becomes a source of blessing. The Prophet ﷺ said that when the Haji wears the ihram, the two white pieces of cloth, and he travels to the house of Allah, wherever he says this labbaik Allahumma labbaik, Allah's mercy not only descends on this Haji, it descends on the whole locality through which he passes. Allah. So this house of Allah is full of blessings. And the one who sees that house of Allah is also full of blessings. The Prophet ﷺ said that every day 100 blessings descend on this house of Allah. And 50 of those blessings are for those people who do the tawaf of that house. 30 of the blessings are for those people who do any sort of ibadah in that house. And the remaining 20 are for those who just sit there and watch the house. So not only it is full of blessing, even looking at that house of Allah earns the blessings of it. It is so full of blessing that the Prophet ﷺ said that there's a place in that Kaaba, in that house, which is called a Multazim. It is between the Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone, and the door of the Kaaba. This 5-6 foot place, it is called the Multazim. The Prophet ﷺ said that the one who makes dua at this Multazim, dua is accepted by Allah. So once the Prophet ﷺ himself was on that wall, and both of his hands, his chest, and his cheeks, the blessed cheeks, they were on that blessed wall. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua, and then he came back, and there were tears in the eyes of the blessed messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Umar radiallahu anhu was standing there. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh Umar, this is the place where one should shed his tears." So one of the scholars narrates this, that his friend, he visited the house of Allah. We were talking about the 80s, 1980s, and there were no cell phones. And he got the opportunity of going to the Multazim. And he went to the Multazim. And he made this dua, "Oh Allah, make my son a hafiz of the Quran." He made this dua, and then he came back and he was sitting in the haram, and after a little while he went back to his hotel room. And as soon as he entered the room, the phone rang. And at that time there were no mobile phones, there was only, the landline. He picked up the phone and it was his wife from Pakistan. And he asked her, "Did you call?" And she said, "Yes. I called today to let you know that for many days, I don't know why, it was coming in my heart that we should make our child a hafiz of the Quran. So today, I enrolled him in the madrasa. And I just came back, so I said I would give you the good news. And here he was. He just came from the Multazim and he made this. So such is the blessing of this house of Allah. Not only this, that this people who tawaf the house in the hadith, it comes, there is another bayt, another house. And that house is on the arsh. It's above the universe. And it's called the Baytul Ma'mur. The Prophet ﷺ said that the Baytul Ma'mur is the house of which the angels are doing tawaf. The angels, the malaika, they do the tawaf of the Baytul Ma'mur. The mercy that descends on that Baytul Ma'mur, it is that same mercy that descends on the Baytul Ma'mur. So once, a few years ago, we were in Washington, D.C., and there's a very famous space museum there called the Smithsonian Museum. And we went with there were like 3 or 4, and they were all scholars of this thing. We all went there, and they were playing a documentary called The Star. So we saw the documentary. And it was about all of these, what happens in the skies and how do the stars move and all of that. And they said that, while sitting here, you feel that all these stars are stagnant. They're not. They're all moving, and they're all moving in orbit. There's one thing which is in the middle. All of these stars are moving around this center. And they said, we can prove it to you if you just fast forward. And when they fast forward, it was very clear that all of these stars were moving in an orbit. So one of the scholars said, there's Baytul Ma'mur, and the Baytul Ma'mur has the mercy of Allah that comes on it, and the Malaika do tawaf of the Baytul Ma'mur. And then on the earth, people do tawaf. And in the way, in the middle, there is this one another place where all the stars are doing tawaf. Allah. This house of Allah is full of blessings. Not only that Allah says in this ayah that it is full of blessings. Allah says, Mubarakan wa hudan lil alameen. It is a source of guidance for the alameen, for all the worlds. And truly, whoever goes there, his heart melted in the closeness of Allah. So once this one scholar from Pakistan visited the US, and there's a city called Seattle, and he went to one of those masajid in Seattle, and he spoke there. And then after the lecture, there is this one woman who would like a few questions, and you should answer his questions. And the Shaykh said, I have to, move. I have to go to another city, and we have to lecture tomorrow there. So it is better to just go. But he said, no. She was a Jewish woman who converted to Islam. And she does ibadah with so much love that she spends 1 hour on each salah. And she is so close to Allah, and she is so nice in her manners, and she is so well-read and knowledgeable that, Muslim women, they take inspiration from her. So it is good if you give her some time, this is a beacon of light for our community. So when he said all of these things, when the Imam said all of these things, the Shaykh said, okay, fine, you arrange for Parda, and I will talk to you from behind you. So she sat down on one side, and the scholar sat down on the other side. And she kept on asking questions about Islam. And the scholar said that the way she was asking questions, it was not as if it was a new convert asking questions. It seemed as if it was a very big scholar who had a very deep knowledge of Islam who's asking all of these questions. This is how knowledgeable she was. And she kept on asking questions for 2 hours, and the Shaykh kept on answering her questions. Allah. And then finally, after 2 hours were done and all of her questions were answered, the Shaykh said, okay, now I have one question too. And she said, okay, what is your question? He said, well, just let me know who inspired you. Which Muslim gave you dawah so that you can come towards Islam? And she answered, I came to Islam without anybody giving me any dawah. I said, well, nobody inspired you. Nobody gave you a lecture. Nobody showed you the right path. None of the humans showed me any right path. So So the Shaykh said, how did you come to Islam? And she said, I am an engineer. My husband is an engineer. We were both working at an engineering firm, and they announced that they're opening one branch in Saudi Arabia. And whoever goes there, they will, compensate them more. It's going to be a better salary package, and give them a lot of more benefits. So she said, my husband and I, we thought about it, and we said, okay, fine, we get more money. And also we'll get to see a new country, a new culture. So why should we go there? So they opened a branch in Jeddah, in Saudi Arabia. And we went there. And he said, when we went there, after a couple of months, about 2 or 3 months later, we saw that there were people coming from all over the world, people of different cultures, different races, different countries, wearing 2 pieces of cloth, and they were coming to Jeddah and going somewhere else. So I asked my husband, where are all these people going to? And the husband answered, there's, Muslims, they have an annual pilgrimage. And it is in Makkah, which is about an hour from here. And in Makkah, the Muslims say that there is a house of Allah. The house of their God is in Makkah. So she said, oh, fine, let's go. See how the house of the Muslims' God looks like. And he said, no, you and I, we cannot go there. Only Muslims are allowed in. You and I, we cannot. Not Muslims, we're Jews. So she said, I was very upset. Then why can't I go and see how the house of God looks like, or the house of the God of Muslims, how it looks like? So I said nothing, and then one whole year passed. Again, there are people coming from all parts of the world, all races, all cultures, all countries, all of them wearing these 2 pieces of cloth, and they're all going to Makkah. And now I was about 1 year old in Saudi. I spent 1 whole year in Saudi Arabia, and I know how things work here. So this time I didn't say to my husband, can we go or can we not go? I just said to him, you wear the Muslim man's cap, and I'll wear the Muslim woman's, the piece of cloth that they wear on their heads. And let's try. If they let us go inside Makkah, we'll go. If not, we'll come back to Jeddah. And she said that, okay, we both drove to Makkah. And it so happened that the person on the security checkpost, he let us in. And we entered Makkah. And my husband, he parked his car and he walked in the haram. He walked inside the haram. And when we came close to the house of Allah, the Baytullah, my husband, the house had so much barakah. It was so eye-catching. It was so just enormous and glamorous. We could not look at anything else. We both kept on looking at that beautiful, blessed house. And we kept on looking at it for many, many minutes. Finally, when I looked at my husband's face, there were tears in his eyes. There were tears in my eye as well. And I didn't know what was happening. So then I asked my husband, is this not reality? And my husband said, this is reality. Then I said to him, okay, then if this is the reality, why should we not accept this reality? So then my husband and myself, without any of the Muslims giving us any inspiration or any dawah, we accepted Islam in the house of Allah. This blessed house of Allah is not only full of blessings, Mubarakam wa hudan lil alamin. It is also a source of guidance. The truth is that this journey to the house of Allah is not dependent on our wealth. The journey to the house of Allah is not dependent on our wealth. It is dependent on our spiritual health. The journey to the house of Allah. Some people say that if I have money, and that's what the Sharia says, if you have money, then you can travel. But the Mashayikh have said that it is not that if you have money, then you will travel. Whenever Allah calls you, then you travel. So sometimes there's a person who have, and I know such people, in the city of Karachi. Allah has given them so much money. They want to travel to the house of Allah every day and come back to Karachi that night, they can do it. But they have not seen this house of Allah even. And then there are people who do not even have enough to eat, and they've been to this house many, many times. So the travel or this journey to the house of Allah is not dependent on the wealth. Allah. So among the Mashayikh, there was a Shaykh by the name of Shaykh Abdul Malik Siddiqui Rahimahullah. He was a very pious Shaykh of his time, residing in the city of Saliban, I believe. And the Shaykh was, used to make dua to Allah, oh Allah, I want to see this house of Allah. And I want to visit the grave of the Blessed Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he was very few. He had no wealth at all. He would make dua. Once he made a lot of dua, and the time for Hajj was also very nearby. And that night when he slept, he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dreams. And the Blessed Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Oh Abdul Malik, why don't you come to us?" And the Shaykh replied that, "Oh Blessed Messenger of Allah, I would love to come. But I don't have enough money. I don't have that. But I can travel." And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in his dreams that, "Okay, I will arrange." And the dream was done. In the next couple of days, one of his own students came up to him and he said, "Shaykh, for many days I was asking Allah for this blessed opportunity that I save enough money, that you take this money from me and you perform the Hajj to the house of Allah. So you should go and visit the house of Allah. And please accept this as a gift, this money as a gift." So the Shaykh visited the house of Allah that year. After seeing this blessed dream, the Shaykh lived for another 27 years and he performed Hajj 26 times in those 27 years. So this journey to the house of Allah is not dependent upon wealth. It is dependent on your health, your spiritual health. It is dependent on how much love you have and how much desire you have to visit the house of Allah. The Mashayikh of this Ummah, when they visited this house of Allah, they visited with a lot of love and with a lot of devotion to Allah. And something which is lacking nowadays in the Hajis that they who visit the house. So this Shaykh Ibrahim ibn Adham, rahimahullah, he visited the house of Allah in this fashion, that he walked from his house to Makkah. But after every few steps that he would take, he would pray 2 rakats nafil. Then he would get up, he would take a few steps, he would pray 2 rakats nafil. And he walked for 2 years. And he came to the house of Allah. Look at the passion. Look at the desire. Look at the action, the way of going to the house of Allah. And on top of all of this, after 2 years, when he viewed the beautiful house of Allah, he did not say to Allah, "No, Allah, I'm here." After doing so much ibadah, after doing so much worship, nobody comes to your house the way I came. Didn't say any of these. Instead, he said, "Ya Ilahi, ma abadnaka haqqa ibadah." That, oh Allah, the way you should have been worshipped, I was not able to worship. Allah. So this is how people come to the house of Allah. But this is how much humility and love people show to the house of Allah. But the reality remains that this journey is dependent upon your spiritual health, your desire, and your love for Allah. So one last thing, and then inshallah we'll wrap up today's lecture. Shaykh Idris Kandhilvi rahimahullah, who wrote this Tafseer Ma'arif al-Quran, he narrates this story because such a big shaykh narrates this incident. That is why I will take the liberty of narrating this story. There was this milkman in Lahore, a small milk shop, a very poor man. And he heard from some shaykh or some scholar that if you have the true desire to go to the house of Allah, Allah makes the way. So then he started shouting, I want to go to the house of Allah. And every time he would meet somebody, he would shout, I'm going to the house of Allah. So people were shocked that what has happened to him? But he was in this state of love of Allah. And he knew that this journey to the house of Allah is not dependent upon love. He had no wealth, he had no passport, he had no visa. But he started his journey. So somebody heard him saying, I am going to the house of Allah. So somebody told him that, this is not how you go to the house of Allah. Go to Karachi. Because in those days, there were no airplanes. People used to travel through ships. And the ship would actually load from Karachi. So he went to the train station. And the train master, when he saw his jazba and his emotions and his enthusiasm, he said, okay, fine, I'll take you to Karachi. That's all I can do for you. So he took him to Karachi. And he started walking. I am going to the house of Allah. And I am going to the house of Allah. Somebody said, oh, you can't go to the house of Allah by walking there. You have to go actually on the other side. That's where the ship is. Started walking back. And he came to where the shipyard was. And in a few days, all the Hajis, hundreds and thousands of Hajis would, go on that ship. It was a big ship. On the day when the ship was supposed to leave, he started taking, the luggage of the people, and he would put them in the ship, and he also never came back. And he sat in the ship, and he left. No visa, no passport, no money. And he left. But he also knew that, okay, here I have stepped on the ship, but when I get off, they will not let me go to the house. At the Jeddah port, they will check if I have all these things. So it was a few weeks trip, and he made one friend. And he asked this friend, when you see the lights of Jeddah port, you let me know. And the friend became a very good friend. And finally, when the Jeddah port was visible, he said to this man, this milkman, and these are the lights of Jeddah. He said, are you sure that these are the lights of Jeddah? He said, yes. As soon as he said yes, he said, Allahu Akbar, and he jumped in the water. Because he knew at Jeddah port, if I get off of the ship without any visa or passport, they will let me go. And this friend, he was shocked at what did he do? He became such a close friend of mine, and I wish I had not told him that this is Jeddah. And he jumped in the water, so for a little while he saw him on top of the water, and then he was not visible. He was convinced that my friend had died. So he became very sad. After a day or so, the ship parked at the Jeddah dockyard. And all of these Hajis, they left and they went to Makkah. And after a few days, it was time for Hajj. So this friend, he completed his Hajj. And after Hajj, once he was coming out of the Haram, he saw one man who was wearing Arab clothes. But from inside of those Arab clothes, he could see that it was that same milkman that he made friends with. But he thought to himself that maybe because that man is in my mind so much, because he jumped and he died, so maybe it is just my mind which is thinking, and this probably is an Arab man. But he could not control himself, and he went up to him. And he said, are you the same friend of mine from that ship? And he answered back in Urdu. He said, yes, that's who I am. He said, are you alive? He said, yes, I am alive. He said, did you do Hajj? He said, yes. Alhamdulillah, I did Hajj. He said, how did that happen? I thought you died. He said, I jumped because I had no passport, no visa, no money, nothing. And when I jumped, I was so sure that because I had this true desire in my heart to visit the house of Allah, Allah is going to take me there. And he said that the waves took me to the shore and I was fainted. And I had water inside of my body, water in my eyes, in my nose, in my ears. And for a very long time, I was just lying on the shore, fainted. After a long time, I woke up because I heard a few noises. And the noises were that there were two men trying to milk a cow. And they were not able to, and the cow was kicking them. And I got up and I was so, I was so tired. And I was so weak. But I still got up and I went up to them. And I said to them that you are trying to milk this cow. Let me try it. Because I was a milkman. This is what I've done all my life. So I touched the cow the way milkmen touch them. And then I milked the cow, and I got 3-4 kgs of milk. And these guys were like shocked. It's like, you can milk this cow. He said, yes. So will you stay here? Our boss is coming. He has 200 cows. And there's no milkman that can, milk the cows. And for many days, we're losing this business. And he's looking for a milkman. So you are the man. He said, no, I'm not. I am here because I have to go for Hajj. He said, yes, you will do your Hajj. Talk to this man. He's the director of the dockyard. And he talked to this milkman. I need to do Hajj. He said, you do Hajj every year. I'll call your family, do Hajj with your family. So I performed Hajj this year. And next year, my family will also be here, and I'll do Hajj with my family. Allah. So this visit to the house of Allah, and this journey is not dependent upon love. It is dependent on the true emotion and desire, love of Allah. To make love to Allah. That Allah gives us the tawfiq to do this journey to this blessed house and to perform this blessed Hajj. We make a short watch. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyid al-Anbiya wal-Mursaleen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. Allah, we are your servants and we are your simple servants. Allah, forgive us our sins. All of the sins that we have done in the morning, Allah, forgive all of those. All the sins that we have done in the evening, Allah, forgive all those sins as well. And, oh my Lord, the sins that we have done without knowing, Allah, forgive those sins as well. The sins that we have done knowingly, Allah, forgive all those sins as well. Oh Allah, grant us a journey to the blessed house. Oh Allah, forgive us for all the shortcomings that we do. Oh Allah, all the difficulties and hardships that we face in this ummah faces. And Allah, give us relief from all those difficulties. And oh Allah, give us relief from difficulties of this world and the difficulties of the hereafter. Oh Allah, the du'as that we have made, accept those du'as. And oh Allah, the du'as that we should have made, accept those du'as also in our prayer. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa 'amalan mutaqabbalan wa lisanan zakiran wa qalban khashi'an wa rizqan wasi'an wa shifaa'an min kulli da'. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala habibi Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. So inshallah, this class will continue. We had stopped it for a few days because I was traveling, but now I have decided that when I will travel, Brother Tawqir will continue this class. We will do the tafsir part. And when I'm back, inshallah, then I will be taking the class. So when I will be traveling, Brother Zaki will do the hadith part of the class as well and the tafsir part as well. And when I'm back, then Shaykh Zaki will do the hadith part and I will do this. Inshallah.